Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all having a fantastic afternoon. Today I'm going to be doing a review of a horror film from Canada, English language, released in the year 2011, directed by the Vicious Brothers, and this film is called Grave Encounters. And the story to Grave Encounters is as follows. Lance Preston and the crew of Grave Encounters, a ghost hunting reality television show, are shooting an episode inside the abandoned Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital where unexplained phenomena have been reported for years. They voluntarily lock themselves inside the building for the night and have a paranormal investigation, capturing everything on camera. They quickly realise that the building is more than just haunted, it's alive, and find themselves lost in a labyrinth maze of endless hallways and corridors, terrorised by the ghosts of former patients. They soon begin to question their own sanity, slipping deeper and deeper into the depths of madness, ultimately discovering the truth behind the hospital's dark past. Will this be their final episode of Grave Encounters? So the movie centres on a reality ghost hunting television show called Grave Encounters that specialise in the unexplained phenomena. So they're brought to this psychiatric hospital called the Collingwood Psychiatric Unit, and this hospital has been closed for years because of the evil wrongdoings of the doctors towards the patients. They specialise in these very dodgy lobotomies. So it's been closed for years, and a lot of people believe it's a hot spot for the unexplained phenomena. So Grave Encounters are here to investigate it, to prove this theory wrong or right. They get to there, they get an insight into the background. A lot of people are telling them the scary parts that happen. So already that environment is very dreaded. So they voluntarily lock themselves inside this hospital for the evening, which proves to be a big mistake because they are now at the hands of this building that is not only haunted, but it's also alive, and it's starting to play games with the camera crew's minds. So whether or not the camera crew get out of this ordeal alive, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my rundown. Now, my thoughts on the film. If you're a fan of the found footage films, you'll really like this one, because I actually feel it's one of the better sort of films of this subgenre. But if you're not a fan of the subgenre and you're getting sick of the found footage films, then this one won't provide anything terribly new, which is my biggest criticism of the film, is that, yes, it does do the simplistic things well, but it doesn't provide anything terribly new. So if you're passed up on this one, you're probably not missing too much. But I would say definitely still check it out, because in what it does it and it succeeds very well, because of the fact it's more patient than a lot of other films of this nature, and it has a lot more respect. Now, by that I mean, I'm going to compare this one to Paranormal Activity 4, which was a massive letdown for me, because I felt they were more concerned about the jump scares rather than creating a solid environment. Now, this movie has a solid environment because the directors had patience towards the start. At the start of the film, you're given an insight into this horrible history of this place. Therefore, the environment is set. It's a very dreaded atmosphere, and you kind of feel that if something is haunting, it could be very nasty. But in Paranormal Activity 4, it was just very hollow. It seemed very empty. And when the scary things happened, it just didn't seem that scary because you didn't believe in the actual story. Whereas in this one, you actually believe in it. This camera crew, they lock themselves in. It's a very eerie atmosphere, and you're never quite sure whether or not it is haunted because they don't use the jump scares straight away. So that psychology really comes into it, and that was something missing in Paranormal Activity 4. So, as I said, they start going through these corridors, and you start to believe that maybe something is there, or maybe it's your mind playing games with you because it's such an isolated area. And that environment gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it seems like a claustrophobic sort of a bubble of hell that is engulfing them very, very slowly, and they're not really aware of it. So that in itself was very creepy. And then when the bad things start to happen, it's even creepier. Now, what I liked about the jump scares, that yes, they were your typical Paranormal Activity jump scares, but what I loved about it, at the start of the jump scares, it's very predictable. But then halfway through, it starts to turn unpredictable. So it's kind of like the directors were deliberately giving you a false sense of security. It kind of gave the impression that the viewer was in control, and because you're in control, it became predictable, and therefore it wasn't that scary. But when things start to become unpredictable, that's when the scary value starts to really jump in. It's the feeling of no control that scares a viewer, and unfortunately in most of the paranormal activities you have control because you feel that you know what's around the corner. But this movie, it plays with you, so half of it is predictable and it gives you that false sense of security of control. Then all of a sudden that control is taken away from you, and therefore you don't know what's around the corner, and that captivates your attention, and that keeps the film going, and it gives it life. Towards the middle of the film, I thought it was running low, but when that unpredictable value comes in, it starts to kick up a notch again, and it really never lets go until the very end. I thought the end was very rewarding. So that level of psychology, it matched the theme of, being inside a mental hospital. You felt like you were losing your mind as well. You're never really quite sure whether it's mentally or if it's something really happening. And that sort of, is teetering on the edge of insanity or if it's haunting. And that really played well off each other. And it's never really never really revealed until the end whether or not it's going insane or if it really is haunted. So there's a lot of games that the directors play with you, and for the most part they're done very, very, very well. So as I said, the problems with the film, I didn't really like the characters at all. I thought they were very obnoxious, very, very arrogant sort of individuals. Yes, they're camera crews, so they work for a television show, so they've got to have some level of arrogance. But I felt that they were very hollow, very, very empty, shallow, and that's something that's stereotypical as far as found footage films are concerned. They concentrate more on the jump scares. But this movie provides something just a little bit different because of the fact it has a psychological aspect to it. But the fact that they were very shallow characters I thought was a letdown because it had a different spin on it as far as psychology is concerned. But if it had a different spin on it as far as character development was concerned, I thought it would have been even better. But because you don't really care about these characters, it just falls down into a typical sort of found footage film, which is, disappointing. It's the negative part of the movie, but fortunately, the positives outweigh the negatives. I would say definitely check this film out if you're a fan of the subgenre of found footage, because it is genuinely scary, and that's something that is missing in a lot of films these days, the scary value of the movie. The jump scares, and you genuinely feel like, you got a chill down your spine because of the fact the directors have taken time for you to get used to your surroundings. You're not thrust into the bang, 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 who's there? You're not thrust into that straight away. You're given time to basically, get yourself into the shoes of the viewer. The shoes of the actual characters, rather than getting chucked into the deep end straight away. So you've got time to absorb it all in, and when the bad things start happening, I thought it had much more of an impact. So overall, I would recommend this film if you're a fan of found footage. I felt, very, very enjoyable movie. I will be watching it again, and it's one of the rare occasions where I was actually scared. But unfortunately, the negatives prevent it from being an absolutely great film, because there are a few standard sort of subgenre problems that the film has. But overall, it is a very good experience, and it's one that I would seriously recommend, especially if you're a fan of the Paranormal Activity franchise. So I'm giving this 3.5 stars. It does come recommended. Alright guys, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.